We're rolling. Timer starts now. Mark. Hi, I'm Ford.
And I'm Sky. And these are not our real names. These are our superhero names, and with our powers combined, we formed the writing partnership L. Skyford. Welcome to Booklandia.
Today, we're going to review a book, most likely a romance. But before we get much further, did you know you can watch our faces do this episode by subscribing to us on Twitch at L. Skyford or YouTube at L.Skyford? You should really do it. We give good face.
And sometimes there's a dog bomb at Ford's house.
This is true. For our other socials, you can follow us on Twitter at SkyfordL, on Instagram at L.Skyford. And if you're interested in our book, blog, or even more book reviews, head over to our website, lskyford.com.
Lastly, this and every episode are chock full of oversharing and spoilers, and every episode is rated E for explicit. You have been warned.
Whee!
Woo!
wait, this way. Flipped image.
Sorry. Oh my gosh. So we have a super exciting episode for you all today because we have a guest. And we have forced this guest to talk about a book that I made him read, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgernstern. Everybody,
And
meet
thank
Finnegan.
goodness.
Finnegan Justice Murphy, who is the host of the podcast, the RPG Concierge.
It's that simple, yeah.
We'll just fix this. We'll fix that in post. Oh man. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing today, Finn? This is the part of the show where we talk about ourselves, as you well know.
I'm doing well today. I got a lot of packages today from my brother, who is cleaning out his workshop, and sent me a bunch of things, and also sent a really amazing cutting board that he built for us. And so it's built using the principles of the golden ratio, so the Fibonacci sequence, and all of the pieces of the cutting board are specifically cut to the length to mimic the Fibonacci sequence, and the depth is also one of those numbers, and the trim around this, like everything about it is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
the
right?
it stripes and they get progressively wider.
Yeah. And it's amazing. So we got that today, and I'm very excited to make some universally magical food using that cutting board.
I feel like that's something that some sort of like, not necromancer, but maybe some sort of magician would use as part of their spell, is like you have to open the Bezor over the Fibonacci using a cursed knife blade. Like,
Yeah. And that's exactly how I plan to use it.
Okay,
so
excellent.
Get ready. We're going to be sending
really
some
glad
weird
you bought
stuff at our
those.
house, and it's going to taste delicious.
I'm also really glad you bought those Bezors on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For all your
not
Bezor
Amazon.
needs, go to Amazon.
Jeff Bezos has them.
Oh, nice.
Bezos's Bezors.
Oh boy.
Yikes. So I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. Sky, how are you?
Me? Oh my gosh.
You.
Clearly need to have my hearing checked. It has been it has been a day of a lot of really exciting things. So I feel like I'm emotionally like all the way at the very, very top, but also really aware of the fact that we're going to talk about this amazing book. It is going to be really energized, and then I'm immediately going to fall asleep. Clearly, obviously, the high and the come down from this is going to be massive. So already looking forward to hitting the pillow and snoozing is where I'm at.
Can we talk about this incredible jacket you're wearing? My goodness, this thing is like, you belong in this book that we're about to talk about. I feel like you could be at one of these parties, and it would be great.
Yep. Hard to. It looks leathery on camera, and I'm like, it's a purple leather jacket, and nothing can compare.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you otherwise. It is not. But thank you very much. Yeah, it's an asymmetrical cowl-necked sweater that has an offset opening for those of you listening and not seeing this adventure. That was
with
a
an
weird...
angular, it's got an angular zipper and like high
Snaps.
polished snaps that come off on one side. It's pretty rad.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Well,
I walked into no, that's fine. I walked in to come to this recording with my cup of tea and realized it only had a tea bag and sugar in it. I forgot to put the hot water. So this is also what I'm walking into. It's okay. I got the hot water.
Oh, good.
I realized.
Good.
Yeah. Not
I
just
thought I just
saw
you take a sip.
Just miming it. Just prop comedy over there is what's happening.
Always.
All right, should we jump in? Okay, so we are talking about the Starless Sea. I'm gonna make this cover really big because there's a lot about this cover.
Bye, Finn.
Bye, Finn. You're covered up by the graphic. All right, Starless Sea by Erin Morgernstern. There are keys on this cover. They're all varied, and I feel like the thing that's really missing from this cover is the bees. And
no, there's a bee in the key at the top.
Ooh, okay. There you go. There's a bee in the key at the top.
I don't see any swords, though.
No swords. No swords, indeed. So the next thing that we do is we try to tell what happened in this book in 30 seconds, which I feel like is going to be... Well, I wrote the 30-second blurb, so I know it's difficult to do because a lot happens in this book.
She's a chunky beast.
Yeah, and a lot gets left unresolved in this book, at least I think.
There is some unresolved stuff, agreed. There's just like leftover magic floating. So Finn, we thought we'd give you the exciting adventure of reading through the blurb I wrote. An apology in advance on all of the bad spelling and bad timing. They're not intentional, but they do trip both of us up all the time. So
fair enough.
It's part of the challenge.
It's part of the challenge. Oh, there you go. It's just part of the challenge. So
this is my initiation, my hazing to get into Booklandia.
Oh, exactly.
I don't know that we haze. I hope we don't. So I'm going to count you in.
You can tell us at the end of this.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I'm going to count you in, starting at 3, going all the way to 1. After I say 1, I don't say anything else. I just start the timer. And you're going to get a countdown in a graphic above your head so that you know how many seconds you have left if you want to look at that screen instead of reading. You ready?
I am. This is in the 30-second thing?
Yeah, it says this book in 30 seconds.
Got it. Okay, I'm there.
All right. 3.
I'm ready.
2, 1.
An adventure quest to find a key to a painted door marked with a B leads Zachary Ezra Rollins far below the surface of New York City to a timeless library, seated in the harbor of the Starless Sea, protected by mute acolytes, guarded by Time himself, surrounded by cats. A love story to stories, libraries, and books. Follow Ezra closely, but not too closely, or you might fall into the honey at the bottom of a ravine, and there might not be a pirate to pull you out of its depths. Dang.
So close.
I started off too slow.
But I got the whole thing, whereas when I say them, it's just a blur of words and no one can understand it. So I think you did the right thing.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, so in the most complicated sentence I've written in a while, this is all the stuff. And I've omitted quite a few bits of this book. I was just trying to focus on Zachary Ezra Rollins, which I have to tell you, I kind of love that it was always his whole name.
Always Zachary Ezra Rollins.
Yeah. So I could not do that.
Before we press on, this book came out in November of 2019, so it's been out for a while. and therefore you should be able to find it quite easily, and I'm already going to tell you I recommend you do so.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is
it's
written
So
beautiful.
back to Zachary Ezra Rollins.
Sorry, written by Erin Morgernstern, and a shout out to The Night Circus, her previous novel, which is
Mhm.
also glorious, and a separate shout out to her because she's a theater practitioner who this is her other adventure. If you have not read The Night Circus, take all my ums away and read that as well. It is so beautiful. It is
Mhm.
yeah. They're both speechlessly beautiful for me because I can't explain them.
Yeah.
Mhm. But we're going to try.
We sure are. All right.
Okay, so what we do next is we ask each other questions that are related to the book. Oh, flipped image. We're going to get it one day. So we, for you, dear audience, have asked Finn to also drop in some questions. So we're going to hear Finn's questions along with mine and Sky's questions as well. So who wants to start?
I think I should.
I'll start. Oh no, you start.
You start. I was thinking my question might be the first one in the plot, which is the only reason I volunteered. So Zachary Ezra Rollins reads a book, finds an unmarked book in a library, and reads a story in that book, and that story happens to have actually happened to him when he was a child. So he reads what he thinks is fiction, and turns out it is telling something about his life. The discovery of that story really gets him on the entire journey to find the Starless Sea. If you found a story in a book and it was a story that actually happened to you, what would you do?
I feel so this topic has come up, I think, a few times in a couple of stories or like plots that we consume. The Magicians has a similar thing. You have your life's book essentially, and it's always tempting to read your life's book, to read the ending of your story, right? And in all these iterations, nothing is, you really shouldn't. You should really just stay away from your own story.
Oh,
I
man.
don't know yet what I would do. I think I would freak out.
I would absolutely continue reading it, and then, similar to the characters in this story, try to figure out just what exactly is going on. So, Zachary Ezra Rollins, man, I'll get it one day. He reads this chapter, and it's about him, and he then devours the rest of the book multiple times over in a very short period of time in an attempt to figure out what's going on. He can't find the author. There's no information really whatsoever for him except for a few tiny little disparate clues. I would do the same. I feel like I would need to know and figure out what kind of prank this is. I tend to get into pranks a little bit, and so I would at first assume that this is something related to that. And so I would probably think it's some kind of joke and attempt to find out who I need to target next.
I keep questioning what childhood moment would be in this book. Like, what moment from my childhood would it be recorded? And I can't think of one. So, like, yeah.
Well, mine would be probably some moment. I grew up across the street from a pretty big park, and I spent a lot of time in there as a kid, and so it would probably be somehow tied to that, as that's really the closest I've ever gotten to some kind of fantastical element. Like in this story, he reads about a time when he saw a door painted on a wall that looked so real, and he was tempted to try to open the door and decided not to. And And so I'm struggling right now to think of a moment that would be appropriate, but it would probably have to do with me, likely my friend AJ, who I've known since I was 4 and is a brother to me. We would spend all kinds of time in there. And so it would probably have to do with a time when AJ and I were kicking it in the park in some dark, haunted woods sometime.
Well, that sounds like the opening to a fantastical book, for sure.
Right? Chasing deer and stuff?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Building forts, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the door that Zachary Ezra Rollins does not open as a child, had he opened it, would have led him to a whole subterranean world, the harbor, which is also like a huge library world. It's basically a subterranean book world. I consider this to kind of be like my dream, to go into basically just live in a library where no one will bother me and I can sit under a blanket and just read forever. Do you both have the same dreams as I do of escaping into a bookland?
Sorry, I'm turning lights on in here.
That's okay. Well, why don't I answer while you're changing the mood in your world? There you are. I would say, having worked in a library, and having worked in a library that has a basement, it is both wonderful and a little bit oppressive over time. Just the building itself, not the presence of books, not the possibilities all those worlds hold. But as I was reading this world and sort of the architecture of this library, it did make me wonder as to whether or not it's so cavernous, especially once you see the harbor, how giant it is by comparison to one person. I imagine that you would not, even if you are a person who's claustrophobic, one would not feel like that in this world because of how vast it is, meaning that it would just be this gloriously warm delight with a kitchen that brings you whatever you want for snacks.
Magic kitchen snacks.
Magic kitchen. I know I'm imposing on a later question about magic kitchen, but
yeah, that's
good.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's an interesting question if this would be like an ideal fantasy world. I think the fact that it's this massive underground library plus hotel is kind of this perfect combo, right? There's even a ballroom, which is rad and cool. There's statues and art everywhere, which is very cool. Like you said, the cavernous nature of this place is very awesome. Yeah, I don't mind exploring. That sounds like fun. What a weird and awesome opportunity.
Great. Let's all go.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, me. That's me. My turn.
Yeah.
Your turn. Your turn for questions. Segues.
Segues. So, segue from do I want to stay in the underground library to my question is a little hard. So hard left, everyone.
No need to. Hard left, everybody.
So originally, one of the core concepts of this book, and this is spoilers, is that there's this underlying story that is being resolved, and that is that fate and time fell in love, and a parliament of owls decided that that was not great because both of them have really important jobs to do, and if this love starts to interfere with that, having fate and or time go awry would be disastrous. So they do the best thing that they can in the moment, which is, of course, what any of us would do. They attack and kill fate, which seems drastic. And fate's heart gets taken away. However, later in the story, there's a moment where a character whose name is Dorian is trying to find Zachary Ezra Rollins, and I'll get it one day. And they are lost, and they are having a hard time finding their way. And they reach out, and one of the owls comes to assist them. And that seemed really weird to me, because the thing that Dorian is looking for is Zachary, but also the owl leads them to a place where they can find the heart. Which seems counterintuitive to me, because if you're part of the group that took the heart in the first place, why would you show someone where it is? I don't know. It just seemed weird. I trust Erin a lot as the author, and so I don't think it's a mistake. What's happening here? Why are the owls helping? Is this the right question for this podcast? I don't know, but it was like it was a moment when it happened, and I thought, what is going on? I thought they were the bad guys, but now they're helping. It's very weird.
No, this is the perfect question for this podcast, because
Yes.
the owls were wrong. And they fell in love with this couple, and they're helping them, right? Without the heart, their story ends. So this particular owl changed its mind. And so the owls are no longer the bad guy. They're the bad guy of circumstance, if you will, right? In that moment, they they made that decision to separate fate and time. And in this moment, they made a different decision. And it makes them it humanizes them, or it gives them aspects of correcting the mistakes of what they were doing, or understanding that sometimes the decision in the moment may be great for the moment, but does not work long term. No, I think it makes perfect sense that the owl changes its mind.
It also comes back to how much are the owls, as with anything, influenced by the bees. So was this all a long con for the bees? I don't know. That's an interesting. Are the bees the bad guys?
Well, later on we learn that, and listeners, viewers, this book is a trip, and there's going to be moments when we're talking about stuff, and you're going to have to cling to the edge of it with your fingertips as hard as you can, because it won't make sense until you read it, and you should absolutely read it because it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
But in an attempt to explain, there are bees that are attempting to craft this story, and it gets a little bit away from them because of things. And so perhaps you're right. Perhaps because the bees' new intention is to finish the story, bring the story to a resolution. And so if that resolution is being delayed, perhaps the bees are like, okay, enough's enough. They're the ones that are really pulling the strings in the background, so to speak.
They're the deus ex machina of the book.
Yes.
Sorry, deus ex machina. I know.
Yay! I didn't want to say
it. Yeah, thank you. Deus ex machina.
I like it. That could be your own personal version of it.
Thank you. Yeah. This also opens a question that we're not talking about, but like authorship, because we talked about the book that Zachary finds that doesn't have an author, but is written by one of the acolytes. But are the bees the real author of the story, quote unquote? It's an interesting sort of author inception.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a lot of that in this. Stories within stories within stories.
So this is a good segue to the next question, which I'm absolutely going to take, and it has to do with telling stories for me anyways. So Dorian is Zachary Ezra Rollins's maybe love interest, maybe originally a bad guy, or someone we don't trust, someone I did not trust. So my question is, at some point, Dorian for me changed from being an unreliable narrator to the love interest. And by the end of the book, I was like, they're getting together, right? Like, this is going to happen, yes? Because I'm fully committed. I have shipped this. Please make it so. And so my question is, what was there ever a moment, did you feel like he was unreliable at first, and was there a moment where he switched for you from being a mystery or a secret bad guy to the love interest? Because I feel like depending on whose story you listen to, he occupies a bad guy, good guy, not either sort of space.
Mm-hmm. Even in his own story too, right? Like he describes himself as that, as working for one side and then changing over and working for another side, and how his motives changed so drastically in quite a short period of time. I never got around to feeling like Dorian deserved any sort of retribution. There wasn't, to me. He was not a good guy. He was not a good guy to Zachary. He used him. He sent him into some place that was very dangerous with no information for no reason, like withheld information for no good reason, just to like manipulate him and get him into this position. Which, okay, cool, that's great. Sort of anti-hero motives, I guess, if you play it that way. And then I turned a page and he was drunk and passing out, and Zachary was trying to like make sure he didn't make a fool out of himself. And then the next thing I know, they were like in love with each other, and I didn't feel like that transition had been earned, because there was no gesture of apology, there was no gesture of reconciliation whatsoever. It was just, he went from being super drunk, passing out, talking in his drunken stupor in his hotel room, to them just being together. I don't know, like there was a physical attraction from Zachary to Dorian. We never know Dorian's motives until way later, whether he's attracted to him or not. And I don't know, I feel like at best they earned infatuation. I don't think they earned a love story. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it's not a love story. It's not a romance. That's not the main thrust of the book anyway. No. The Torner corned for me.
Well done.
Turned for me. Basically, so I started this book pre-quarantine, and then I put it down for most of quarantine and only picked it up a few months ago. So, but I think it happened where I put it down, which was they're essentially heisting the book from the people Dorian used to work for, the now evil swords, and Dorian helps Zachary escape. Like Zachary gets really hurt, and they Dorian gets hurt. Dorian gets hurt, right? Yeah. And Zachary helps him escape, and they go to the harbor. And that it's sort of that like transition into the harbor, and they're both in their hotel rooms, and the hotel rooms say so much about them. And there's a scene where Zachary is just hanging out in Dorian's room, like getting his vibe, essentially. Like that's where it started to step into romance land, for sure.
Yeah, I think as far as your definition, I'm sorry. As far as your definition of romance v erotica, romance is a love story with a happy ending, right? They get together, or are happy for now, happily ever after, whatever. And I think this book has that. So I don't think it's wrong to classify this as to have an amended romance tag at the end of this in the list of all of the genres that this book is. To have romance in that cluster of genres, I think is perfectly good. It's just not the part of the book that I liked.
That's fine. You didn't have to. Dorian remained an untrustful character for me for most of the book, mostly because he does not wear shoes, and I do not think that that is safe, and I'm gonna mother finger him all the way to tomorrow about putting his shoes back on. But I mean, we warned you about spoilers, so now that we're half an hour in, spoiler, you guys. When he dies, that's when I went, wait, no, no, I'm not ready for this. Like, this is not a character I'm ready to let go of, because Zachary's story isn't done, and he's clearly part of that story. And so up until then, I was like, what? Like, what is going to happen? Like, when is he going to betray him again? And then it happened, and it happens suddenly. And I went, oh, I am emotionally committed to this not being like this, and I am not okay with this right now. So that is when I started to believe their story.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, cool.
But also wear your shoes, damn it. Wear your shoes.
Also wear some shoes. You're underground. Do you know how much tetanus is down there?
Exactly. Just put some shoes on.
Oh.
Jeez. Let's put some shoes on. My goodness.
Yeah. Put some shoes on.
So I didn't have many character questions, but I did want to point out some cool, just tiny little things I noticed about character that were really neat, and maybe they'll spark a discussion. Number one, we've already touched on it a little bit here. Oh, fantastic! You go into your subterranean, massive, mysterious library hotel room, and there's a little light in the corner with a dumbwaiter, and there's cards that you can write down whatever you want, and you send it down, and the kitchen sends back up whatever you want with like a friendly little note attached to it that's like, hello, we hope you're doing well and enjoy this muffin while we do your dry cleaning. Is there anything else you need? And then like they're just like really great. I thought the kitchen was adorable, and I love the kitchen. What did you guys think?
Hard same.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we don't know that the kitchen is bees until much later. But
the
this, to
very
me,
end.
Did that change it for you? Did that make you like grossed out about the kitchen at that point?
No, I mean, I love the bees. This book sets it up in such a great way that by the time everything is revealed, so for me, there were no bad guys. There was just situational badness. And so by the time that the bees are revealed, I've even forgiven them for burning down the paper city, right? Like I forgive them all wrongs by the time we get to the end, because all of it is just what happens. Right? There is no good or bad. It's just a story. I mean, there are some really heartbreaking moments in the story, but I don't hold it against them. And so, no, I think it's great that it's the bees. This is the most beehive-like behavior that they actually have, right? Like they're most, I want to say motherly, but I know that worker bees are all males, so most fatherly behavior of the kitchen.
Yeah. That's not something I had considered before, of like, because to me I had the same reaction of, oh my god, it was the bees the whole time. That's so weird. How do they have such great penmanship, right? Because they would write back letters. But it never occurred to me that some people out there might be then suddenly turned off about the kitchen because now there's bugs touching all of my food, right? Like, I didn't go there, but I can absolutely understand somebody doing that, right?
Yeah. I don't know, like Harry Potter has set us up with a magical kitchen situation. So I think a lot of people are primed for magical kitchens.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was really fun, there's a character named Rhyme who is silent, and they're an acolyte, and they go throughout the subterranean library through the Starless Sea, and they light candles, and they put books, they reshelve books, and they basically just like maintain order as much as anyone can maintain order in this kind of chaotic atmosphere. And in the end, when they're leaving, Rhyme takes off their acolyte robes and they're wearing like, I may be misremembering this, but it seemed like they described like a schoolgirl outfit
That's
with
what I
skirt
remember.
and button-down shirt, and she's given an item. Again, I forget what it is. I want to say key, but I'm not entirely certain that it's that. And or a pen maybe, and she puts it in the pocket of her, and that's all that's mentioned about it. But because I am so like keyed into this idea of pockets and things and feminism and all of that kind of thing, I was like, oh hell yeah, Ron's skirt has pockets, and that was very exciting.
Keyed in.
So I guess nice. So I guess a question to go off of that is, were there any little character details like those that caught your attention for a moment about anybody? Sorry,
Uh,
off the script, but yeah.
no, but so many, I like literally
Yeah.
all of them, right? Like the wonder of Erin Morgernstern are these really complicated backstories.
Mhm.
The dreadlocks on the gatekeeper, the painting of Mirabelle that has no real explanation, the jar with cut off finger, like so many things.
Yeah.
uh
I mean,
the yeah.
Zachary's continuous battle with his glasses. That was a
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a whole situational antagonism right there.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's
I
it's
love,
all finely woven tapestries.
yeah, I loved the description of the sun and the moon that meet. I thought that those
Yeah.
descriptions were very cool and surprising because they didn't necessarily stick with some of the more tropey ends of describing a personified sun or moon, but it was still
Mhm.
perfect enough where I was like, oh, that's who that character is. Cool. Without them having to come right out and say, this is the sun and this is the moon. I thought that was great.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so this book has a lot of concepts that to me read that time is cyclical. So lots of like stories within stories that then are these characters come back and it feels like they're like there's reincarnation. Um uh, like yeah. So basically, do you like the idea that everything that happens to these characters has kind of already happened to them or has been planned out in advance? Basically, what do you think about fate?
Well, so this sort of ties into whether or not you would read your own book, right? Whether or
Right?
not you'd read your own
Yeah.
story. I do not think that our fates are pre-written. I do think that they may be penciled in, but there is a way to unwrite them and write new fates.
Mm,
And so it takes really thinking about, for me, really thinking about the fact that it's already pre-written for all of them takes some of the stress and pressure out of the story. And there were parts of the story where that was really comforting, where like when it was really stressful and all of the things are encroaching on him, it like she has this really great way of making me really anxious. And so in those really
mm,
anxious moments, knowing that there is a way out of this because it is already predetermined. And I realize that it's very meta because it's a book that's already written, so obviously it's already predetermined. That relieved some of that stress. But having said that, if you live on the edge of that stress, it maybe wasn't as comforting for you because it was already predetermined. But
mm.
to like pull it back, meta it all the way out of the book.
Yeah.
For me, our lives are not written yet. So
Mm,
Yeah, I
mm,
think as a mechanic for the story, I really appreciated it because what it comes down to for me, the explanation for that is this story has been trying to end and it can't, which
mhm.
means it's kind of like a record that keeps skipping back to the same point with the hopes that someday it'll jump past that skip point, and it just keeps not happening. And so this is the moment in this story's timeline, present day in the story's timeline, is the moment of getting past that skip point. And so all of those cyclical parts of characters saying, I can't lose you again, or I can't go through this again, that kind of thing is, now that we know that they're all characters in a story, it's them expressing that frustration of it continuously looping in on itself, and to the point where even the library is now void of people because the characters that are supposed to be in there doing their thing have gotten tired of it and also left. And so now it's like only the like hardcore, really dedicated people that have stayed, and it's just a shell of what it used to be. So yeah, I think the cyclical time in it was a really subtle detail that Erin Morgernstern was able to put into the story.
Yeah. Great. Agree. Nothing to add.
All right.
Oh.
Okay, so this book talks a lot about the road not taken, particularly for Zachary Ezra Rollins, because he does not open the door the first time that he's presented with it, and then he does open the door later. Do you think that that exists? Do you think that there is a moment when you consciously realize I could go this way or this way, and then you wonder if the other way, right? I guess my question isn't whether or not those forks in the road exist, but whether or not you think of the road not taken as an option that you should go back and take. And since this is very personal, feel free to just be like, yay or nay, because, there might be some roads not taken.
This resonates to me in a way that sometimes I'll be driving somewhere and I will pass by a horrific car accident, and I will think to myself, thank goodness I forgot my XYZ in the house and I had to go back in, and then I had to have a 5-minute conversation, and then I left. Like, if I had been 5 minutes earlier, that might have been me in that car accident. So like, I think about it in the ways that I'm glad I'm on the road I'm on, both literally and fatally. But I mean, I do sometimes think about the road not taken. I think in a whole other life on Earth 64, I was a professional dancer. Like, I think if I had not moved a lot as a kid, I would dance professionally. And so there's always that like Earth 464 professional dancer option out there. So
Very nice.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that that's really cool, and it's something that I don't really spend a lot of my daydreaming time thinking about that, but I do spend like micro moments about that in my mind, of what if I had not gone my undergrad, right? There's like this point in my life where very clearly that was a pivotal moment, and that is like when you try to think about something that has guided your life to where it is now and was outside your control. For me, that is going to the University of Wisconsin Parkside and doing the roommate lottery in the dorms and being paired up with my roommate, who I had never met before, and he introduced me to a bunch of friends that did things like play role-playing games, and they did a lot of theater work, and they focused a lot on telling stories, and just like it was this really supportive group of people who were just creative and fun and weird, and that really guided me to where I am today. I didn't know what to to major in when I was in college. And so our next door neighbor, who was friends and in this group, said, "Why don't you join theater? Declare as a theater major. It ticks off a whole bunch of required courses that you'll need anyway. And if you decide to change, you at least haven't wasted your time, right? You've filled out these classes, and you can go and do whatever you'd like after that." And then, of course, I got sucked into the sticky machine that is theater, and once you're in, you can never escape. And that led me to sound design, and sound design led me to a master's program at Cal Arts, because it was at the time one of like 4 sound design programs in the country. So my options were, and that brought me out here to LA, and that's where I met a number of friends and started my career. And I met Leah through there, and like my whole life from that one random happenstance, if I had had a different roommate, my whole life would be very different. And so I think about that, but not in a regretful sort of way, just in a curiosity kind of thing.
And
But yeah, I think that there's
your roommate is still your roommate.
Different. So our roommate is one of those people that was in that group. But my original roommate was somebody else. Okay. I would use names here, but I don't know how people feel about me throwing their names around and stuff. Right. I'm sure it's fine, but whatever. Here we are. What about you?
How about you, Sky? Yeah.
Firm believer in multiverse. So every fork in the road is taken, just not by this version of me. And because of that, this version of me does not worry about those forks. So there are, I'm sure, other variations, and I would be very curious to find out how they are doing.
What color their hair is.
Exactly. Yes, what color their hair is. But I do not have moments in my life. There are moments that are scary or uncomfortable that if they would not have been scary or uncomfortable, I would have been just as fine. But they are not moments that I would take back and redo, because they still shaped me, right? They created the grooves that make the current version. And I'm pretty fond of the current version. So no roads not taken for me.
This is a decidedly not nihilistic viewpoint for
I
you.
know.
And I'm a little unmoored.
I know.
It's almost, I dare say, optimistic.
I know. It's this book. This book makes me really think on the bright side, because it has so many gorgeously broken bits that come together in such a great way that it absolutely makes me look at everything in that positive light that it presents.
Yeah. All right, Finn, your question. You're up.
My question. Where are we? Trope or other? Okay. Sorry. There are 6 symbols, and there are 6 dice that they roll that have the different symbols on them, and supposedly that's like, some sort of dice, or they read your future, or they tell whomever can interpret them something about you, which we never get to know about, and that kind of irks me. I want to know what that cipher is. But there's the bee, the sword, the key, the feather, the crown, and the heart. And we know that the bee symbolizes the drone workers in the library. The sword represents people who are defenders of the Starless Sea, which is the underground library, and the whole world down there. And we know that the key are the acolytes who protect everything and keep everything working and organized. But we never learn what the feather is, what the crown is, or what the heart is. Are those other factions? Are they just the owls, the Owl King and Love, maybe? Yes. So what are the dice, and what do they mean? And what are those other symbols?
So I have a theory, but do you have a theory?
Okay. Well, is the heart Fate's heart?
Yes, I think so. So I think it's time, fate, and owl. And I think
Time is the
Dorian.
crown.
So time is the crown. Yes. Fate is the heart. And the owls are the feather. Yes. That's what I think. And I think that Dorian and Zachary and Mirabelle are the humanized representations. And Mirabelle is the feather.
But
And
Mirabelle is Max. She's got the crown. Mirabelle is Fate.
that's true. So okay, so then she's the crown.
But she's also the person who creates the doors, so she's the key.
Well, she's the door maker.
Right. Yeah.
This is the part where I get like so confused. I love where you're headed, and I think that's awesome. But I think at some point in the story, Zachary and Dorian trade places with Maribel and the Keeper, who I think the Keeper at one point is time.
Yes.
But then as we move on, I think Dorian becomes time and Zachary becomes Fate.
Ooh.
Because,
that would make sense.
And the reason I think that is because Zachary rolls all heart on those 6 dice. Whereas Dorian rolls 1 of each kind.
Well, Dorian is passed out when he rolls.
Right. But I still think that's relevant. Either because Zachary's rolling the dice and he doesn't know anything about Dorian, that's why he gets 1 of each, or Dorian is then time, and each side of the die could also represent a number, and that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which would be counting, hence time. I don't know. These are all just crazy disparate.
No, but I think to me there were 2 things. There were the 3 explained symbols and the 3 symbols that you can sort of affix wherever it belongs in your head and wherever you are in the book in terms of how far you've read through it. But the other part of it that I sort of really enjoyed, and the reason I didn't really need the explanation, is because we, the reader, were not initiated into this yet. And so we don't know the rules. And it's okay that we don't know the rules because they aren't ours to know. We're not omniscient. We're not the bees.
I understand that you are a game master and you're a GM and you need to know the rules and how your players are rolling their dice, but not in the Starless Sea.
But like, it's such a fresh concept to me. Maybe there's something in the astrology realm or fortune telling realm where this concept is familiar. But like, if it's tarot cards, I can be like, oh, cool. Tarot cards have meanings that I can go look up if I really need to figure out what this is. And cool on Erin Morgernstern for putting that in there. If you want to follow up on it, you can. If not, no big deal. But the fact that I at least I don't know, so I'm going to continue on with what I don't know as boldly as a mediocre white dude can do. I think that because the dice don't exist somewhere else, there has to be a reason why she wrote he is 6 hearts while Dorian is 6, 1 of each. I don't know.
Not that I think that this is the answer. But do you think that this is something to do with the reader? Like, do you think that based on who you are as the reader that you interpret, it's sort of like, right, to go back to tarot is really interpretation based, right? Like, do you make a sad face when you see death or do you make a happy face at it? And that dictates partially what that card means, right? So is this how you're assigned into like how your moods are going to be elevated or de-escalated in this book?
That's a very interesting thought because I waited for Keeper to translate it for me and he would just go, huh. And then we move on. So again, it's left up to the reader to interpret. So
but
that's
he always said it in a way like, clearly this means something. Like,
yes.
What did he roll? Everything was different, and he went, looked like bothered by that. And they were like, why is that bad? And he's like, everyone rolls their own dice, and everyone gets a different thing. And then just wrote it down, and didn't tell anybody. What?
Yeah.
Erin, come on. What am I supposed to do with this?
Well, I believe you
DM me
can
privately. I won't tell anyone. You just need to tell me, and it's fine. We'll
there you go. Just add her and see what she says.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last question I want to talk about before we go into the break is that party in that New York hotel.
That is not the party I thought you were going to talk about.
Oh, no. I'm talking about that New York party.
Okay.
Is it a great party or the greatest party?
Yeah, the masquerade, the fundraiser party.
The masquerade. Yeah.
The fundraiser.
Yeah. With like the mysterious storytelling, whispered storytelling room, and the people dressed up as book characters.
Uh-oh.
No, go ahead. I paused for you.
It definitely has like a game aspect to it. It's almost like a funky escape room kind of thing, where there are a bunch of characters. There are random clues that you can pick up or follow or not. There are secret cubbies and hideaways and places to get lost in. There are pattern matching and things like that you can do or not. So yeah, it felt part like that to me, which I thought was really fun and cool. It's definitely a party that I would absolutely go to. That sounds like a good time. If for nothing else, then for the drinks that they have there, because that sounded like a whole lot of fun. And the other thing about it that sort of felt interesting was if you live in LA, the opportunity to go to the Magic Castle. That place is wild, and it has a lot of stuff that felt similar to that, where it's this massive, like, it's not even sprawling. It's this massive, twisted, compacted space with a lot of twists and turns and hidden corridors, and a lot of people just doing their own thing. There's a woman just typing out 4-sentence stories for whoever came forward to her, and the story you got says something about you, kind of like a fortune cookie, which is delightful and amazing. And similar in the Magic Castle, if you wander around when one of the main shows is not going on, there are other people doing little like close-up magic shows for, hey, you're sitting next to somebody at a bar, you order a drink, and they go, hey, you want to see something cool? And they pull out this thing and they do a whole bunch of really cool tricks with it. And it's just wild, mind-blowing stuff. So I thought that was really cool. It also felt a little bit like prom, where everybody was super fancy dressed up, and there was this dance floor with music playing and stuff like that. So there was like that kind of weird, I guess prom is not right. It is a masquerade ball. So that all makes sense. Forget that I said that. Editor, go ahead and take that out. So yeah, those are my thoughts about the party. I thought it was really, really well done. Yeah.
Sorry, my turn.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
All I'm gonna say is that's not the party I thought you were talking about. This party we can absolutely make happen. The party I thought you were talking about was the ball in the ballroom that is out of time with Mirabelle much later. That party with all of the like gold paint. That party I want to go to. I want to go to this other party too. But again, if you're in LA and bars are reopened at some point in our universe, at the Edison, you can sort of experience this, or you can rent it out. And like, I feel like being where we are and being in our profession and having some time on our hands, we can make this party happen is all I'm saying. And I would absolutely design some adventures and some
gold
rooms.
lighting.
All right. Yeah. Now I'm going to toss it back to you.
So I had two thoughts while you were talking, Finn. That party, now that I think back on it, feels a lot like a practice Starless Sea. It like all these hidden rooms and people just writing out stories and like little bits of magic everywhere. Hi, Beckett.
There's
Finally,
a dog bomb.
A dog bomb.
A dog bomb!
Finally. And then the other thing is, like, we know that this is where we meet sort of the antagonist. I forgot her name, the woman who wears the fur coat all the time. But what if this is a party for all of those Starless seers who left?
Oh, interesting.
And who went out into the world, and they come back and they go to this party every year.
That's a little sad.
Well, they left. They knew what they were doing, and so they try to recreate the Starless Sea a little bit on the upper land. What am I saying? The above ground.
The above ground. Great. I mean, a little sad for them, but great.
Yeah.
This is me trying to throw us to a break, and I'm doing a very poor job at it. So we're gonna take a little break.
Take us to a break.
There we go. Beckett, throw us to a break.
Okay, we are gonna take an intermission right here. When we come back, we're gonna break down our favorite moment from the book.
And discuss our ratings and if this book made us want to get naked.
Please enjoy this message from one of our friends in the podcasting world. Hi!
And we're back.
We
Hello.
are so back.
We are.
We are back. We are so back, and we are talking with Finnegan Justice Murphy from the RPG Concierge Podcast about the Starless Sea. But before we get into our favorite or most compelling moments, Finn, do you want to tell the peoples about your podcast?
Oh, yeah, right on. Cool. So the RPG Concierge is a podcast that explores role-playing games, and every season explores a new topic. This being our first season focuses on the topic of getting started. If you're curious about role-playing games, what are they? They've kind of had a renaissance in the last probably 5 or 6 years. And so you probably have friends or at least are familiar with the concept of role-playing games or Dungeons and Dragons, as it's become a little bit more popular in the zeitgeist of pop culture. So the podcast season 1 mainly focuses on how do you cross that boundary from being curious or interested in it to actually playing. There's a lot of anxiety that's usually wrapped up in getting started, and so this attempts to pull the veil back a little bit, allow you to somewhat be a little bit of a spectator before playing and learn what some of the expectations are, how things actually work, and remove some of the mystery behind the hobby.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
thank you. That's awesome.
Go subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. Wherever you're listening to us, just slide on over.
Yeah, at this point, episode 1 is out. I'm not sure when this will air. Hopefully there are lots of other episodes by the time this happens, but it comes out every other Monday. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Look for it in whatever podcatcher you use.
Podcatcher.
I like it.
Delightful.
Podcatcher. Yeah, that's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next thing that we typically talk about is the most compelling or part of the book, the most compelling moment in the book, or the favorite moment in the book, which sometimes for me isn't the most compelling, or vice versa. Who would like to start? Are we touching Finn's box?
We're gonna touch Finn's box.
Yes. This is the beauty of not being in the same room. You do you, man.
Yeah.
I do have pants on, so I'll say that. Sure, yeah, I can. I'm happy to talk about mine first. There's a character we haven't talked about yet, and their name is Kat. Kat is a friend of, I'm gonna nail it this time, Zachary Ezra Rollins. Yeah, I got it. So, hi Lolo, are you coming to help me? Okay. So
much dog bomb happening.
I know. Yeah. I'm in the living room, so this is their domain. So Kat is a friend of Zachary Ezra Rollins. Kat is a fellow game designer type person. Hi. Yeah, okay. And she kind of gets caught up in the mystery of Zachary's disappearance. And as part of her journey, she goes to visit his mother. And in that visit, Zachary's mother tells her that when she finds herself all alone on a Tuesday and needs someone to talk to, she should call her. And whenever there's a holiday and she has nowhere to go, she should come here. And it was this really touching moment where I felt like I connected really hard with Kat in that moment. Because Kat, until then, has always been this really like courage forward type person. Yes. And really bold, really puts herself out there. And it wasn't until then that the realization dawned that Kat is perhaps putting up a front, that Kat is wearing a mask. And that Kat really struggles with this concept of belong, fitting in. And so goes above and beyond to make friends so that people will like her. And we learn in that moment that perhaps there's something going on at home with Kat, and that her own family has sort of turned away from her. And I know that my own mother has said similar things to friends of mine and friends of my sister and brother when they were growing up, where our house was always the place where people were welcomed and you could just come over and hang out. We kind of had this open door policy. And for Mother's Day a few years ago, I got my mom a trophy of a like a silver cup trophy thing, and I filled it with notes that our friends growing up wrote to her for Mother's Day, because a lot of them would call her mom, and she would often say that while she was the mother to 3 kids, she was also the mother to like 36 kids, because everybody would come over all the time. And I didn't read any of those notes. I just had people send them to me, and I would print them out and fold them up and stick them in this trophy cup. And she told me that a lot of them contained some really, really powerful stories about how great it was to have that place to go to, just to go and feel accepted no matter what. And that to me is something that I strive for here at our place, and that I try to do for anyone that we know, to make that, like, I think it's really important for people to feel like they are not in the way or occupying too much space, and so that moment for me in the story was like, that was me reading about my life in the book, right? And kind of having that opportunity to see from Kat's perspective of like, this is a place where I get to belong, whether she takes her up on the offer or not. There's a space in this world for her to go and not worry about being judged, or not worry about fitting into the right little box. And I thought that was pretty remarkable for me. I like that a lot.
I think this book talks about belonging a lot in those little moments. Like Zachary, Ezra Rollins was always looking for a place to belong. And Dorian was looking for a place to belong. So I think I think you've hit on a theme there.
Uh-oh. Trope alert?
No.
Belonging?
No.
Nope.
No. Themes party? I don't know.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Gord, what was yours?
So the Paper City in the Starless Sea, hands down, my favorite place described in the book, my favorite part of the book. So it's a city just made out of like bits of paper and found objects, sort of dollhouse style. So anybody who came to visit it would add to it, or they'd move the characters around, or they'd, change things. And it, for me, was a commentary on how nothing can be preserved in amber, honey, and how letting people influence you or influence something can create something unique and even more beautiful. And so it's about impermanence, which makes a whole lot of sense when the book ends there as well. So just the impermanence of beauty and stories and everything.
It's great.
I just found that very beautiful. Yeah.
I think the Paper City is gorgeous. One of the early ones that really grabbed me and did not let me go is, and we at this time do not know that it's Dorian that's telling the story, but Zachary Ezra Rollins walks into a room at the masquerade, and he is told a story by a sexy voiced narrator who is maybe touching him in the dark, but not in a weird way. And yeah, that whole scene, I was like, yeah, I'm sold. Whatever this is, I'm buying it. I need many, thank you. So that was just a really great like it was so visceral, and it literally touched me. So that was fantastic. The description of the fall into the honey, like as he falls into the honey, and the uncertainty of whether or not that is the end. And then Mirabelle's, the revelation of the painting of Mirabelle, like what that painting means, that, and the fact that Mirabelle is already gone when we see it, that whole thing, I was like, I'm gonna need a moment. I'm gonna need a few moments. Please tell me there's more. So, a bunch? I'm gonna go with a bunch.
Every moment was a favorite moment.
There were a lot. This book made me feel a lot, and made me see and feel, like, texturally understand a lot of things.
Nice.
So a question just popped into my head listening to you talk about Mirabelle and her sort of role in all of this and being gone already by the time we realize what's going on. But if Mirabelle is fate and Mirabelle was born in the Starless Sea, and then our story about fate and time, there's a mousy character that steals the heart away to save it and gives it to this woman who creates beautiful pieces of art that are very brief, like sculpting smoke, for example, which is beautiful. And the mouse gives that heart to the woman to sculpt in a mystery. And then that woman gets her hands taken away for hiding the heart. Is the mouse Mirabelle's father, and is the woman who hides the heart away Mirabelle's mother? And if so, what does it mean that her hands were taken away? I feel like that's one of those loose ends that I never got closure on. And maybe it's because I'm not great at figuring that stuff out.
What if Mirabelle had to be gone in order for the story to end?
That's
sure. Yeah, she had to be taken out of it in order for a new fate to take her place, which would be Zachary.
Right. But, and Mirabelle isn't the first fate. Like, they talk about the her reincarnation and how she's had a bunch of different faces and looks.
Yeah, that's true.
Keeper tells that story.
Yeah,
how
Keeper
he always
says that.
finds her no matter what she looks like.
Mm-hmm. See, I just thought that was a cycle in the stories that are being told. So the bees tell a story, it ends, then they tell another story and it ends, then they tell another story and it ends. And this Mirabelle character is recurring in all of these, like all of the characters are reused, right? Like think of theater and rep, right? The actors are the same, but the characters they play are different. So I that's what I took that meaning to be, is that they've gone through so many of these stories together. But you think that it's in this one story she has been multiple different things.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, the bees have been trying to close the story for so long. She's had to reincarnate so many times until they could get all the stars to align for the story to end.
Okay. But what happened to her hands? Why is that a thing?
Also, why does fate have parents? Like, that's...
Oh, man. I don't know.
Someone has to remind her to put on a jacket. Okay.
Wear shoes.
Or wear shoes. Wear shoes.
Yeah.
If anybody knows the answer, just come at us in the comments. Head over to RPG Concierge and just explain it. Explain it like we're 5.
There you go. So, hot take on this. Tell me your big feels about this book. Big feels.
My biggest
take,
we've already Sorry, there's a weird delay. My only hot take is one that we've already sort of touched on, and that is that there was more chemistry between Zach and Maribel in that dance that they had than there ever was between Zach and Dorian throughout the entire thing. And I say that knowing full well that Zach is gay and has no interest in Maribel romantically, but there you have it. More chemistry there than there was between Zach and Dorian. Hot take.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, come at me.
I
At me in the comments,
hope you enjoyed your one and only crossover episode here on Booklandia.
Oh.
So the only reason I didn't give this book 5 stars is because I needed a little bit more of everything. I either needed 20% more world building fantasy, or 20% more romance, or 20% more action. Like, this book was so many things that I almost wanted it to pick a lane so that I could stick to it. But it still, as you can see from the previous hour, still pretty phenomenal.
Yeah,
How about you, Sky?
I mean, firstly, it is a 5-star book for me. I, having just talked about it for a while, am immediately in need of rereading this book right this second. It might be because I read Night Circus. I had an expectation of a pace and a world, because it is not the same world at all. It is not the same story at all. But the way that she lays out all of these possibilities and all of these sort of like expansions upon expansions that don't necessarily have a continuous singular line, that expectation made me like settle into the pace of this, the slow honeyed travel through this. So I'm sorry, I had to the putting, it had to occur. So I'm all in, go get this book immediately, dive right in and just float, just escape. This is delicious. It is gorgeous and painful and beautiful and at times really soft and at times really surprising. So I'm a diehard believer in this book. I will fight you for it if necessary. Does not seem like it's necessary at this moment. And I on the topic of Mirabelle and Zachary and Dorian. So yes, I do agree that there are Mirabelle Zachary sparks and they are super fun, but they are very surfacey. And I kind of like that the stuff that happens between him and Dorian are private, that we know that they exist, but we do not get to feel those sparks.
Do you feel like I felt like we deserve to get a scene of Zachary's mom meeting Dorian, and we never get to have that. Do you think about that?
You kind of do.
You kind of do.
Because you get the, what was it, a dream or a flashback or a flash forward or whatever it was they're at the party and they're out on the porch.
Right, so we don't actually get to meet, like we are not in the room when they meet, but we do know that Dorian meets his mother. Yeah.
I thought that was another test by the evil parts of the story. That was the same as the things in the shadows that are whispering to him. I thought that's what that was. Sure. I didn't think that was real, because he even says this isn't real, and he turns his back and he goes away. So the only thing we get is his mom saying, "I was told I would have 2 sons, and that's why I know Zachary's okay, because I haven't met my son-in-law yet." And then we never get to see that part, right? Yeah.
You're right. That might have been a trick, right? That might not be the setting for what happens to them, but I believe his mother.
So do I. I think it happens. I just want that.
You need some bonus content?
Bonus content.
I need some Starless Sea fanfic. Everybody just get to work. And and I'll read it, and it'll be great.
Yeah.
Or Erin Morgernstern, just DM me. We'll have a chat. I'll ask you all of my things, and you will tell me all of the things, and then everything will be great.
There you go. There you go. That's the pledge here. Please tell us more.
Yeah. So, what we usually do in this segment is, did this book make us want to get naked? However, this is not that kind of book. And frankly, this is not the format for a guest. So, we thought we'd format it a little bit for you. Does this book make me want to play an RPG? Finn, would you like to start?
Yes. So absolutely it did. There are plenty of little hooky things to sprinkle into your own game in here and take in your own direction. There are mysteries to solve. There are really amazing set pieces in this story. There are character relationships that are really interesting. Sorry, I'm getting talking to here. There's of course fantastical elements. I've not read a book like this before. I don't know if you guys have, other than her other book. If you've read other stories that are this fractured, I suppose, is the only thing that I can think of, where they are things that are taking place with or without you as the reader following along. And that's what you get. And it's beautiful, and there are things that you never learn or understand, and that's okay, because that's not the point. I think all of those things are excellent things to into any role-playing game story, because that gives you everybody at the table. That gives everybody at the table much more flexibility to go off and explore and develop these things kind of in their own way, which is stuff that I look for when I'm running or playing in a game.
Yeah. I absolutely would play the Starless RPG. Each of the symbols would be a different class. And so we have a lot of rules for the keys, the swords, and the bees. Like, they set that up very early on in the book. And since they don't set up the feather, crown, and the heart, like the DM could maybe set that up, or the characters could create what those mean for them. For sure. For sure. When I started reading the book, I was like, I'm hardcore a sword. Yeah, yep. And then as the book went on, I was like, oh, but maybe I'm a bee. So it's, yeah. Hashtag I'm a bee. All right. How about, so Sky, I know you're least gamery of the trio of us. What does this make you want to play? Would you play a Starless RPG?
So I have never played an RPG, which is why there's hopefully another crossover heading the other direction where you're going to teach me how to do it. But if it was themed in this world, I would absolutely show up for it, possibly dressed as a literary character, most likely Max, for extremely obvious reasons of
right, for sure.
wearing his wolf suit and doing terrible things.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. This has been really long. So do we want to talk about what we're reading next, or just bounce?
I think I'm rereading this. Thanks.
Oh, fantastic. Finn, what are you reading?
I am reading The Ray Bearer by
Jordan
Ifueko.
Yeah.
And it is fantastic, y'all. Go check it out. I'm only 6 chapters in, and it had me hooked from jump. It's freaking great. Cliff notes. A young girl / demon is wish-bound to kill a prince, but doesn't wanna. And so what do? You're wish-bound, and you still have autonomy. So it's pretty great. The mythology in it is great. The lore that they build, the world building, all of it, fantastic, top notch. Go check that out.
Awesome.
The Ray Bear.
Ray Bearer.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Nope. The caption still did not get it, so that's fantastic. I am reading a book from the library. It's a nonfiction called Burnout, and it is about women and the emotional labor of burnout and how to close those emotional circles and stop letting stress cycles rule your life. So, I'm gonna take care of my stress. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Well, thank you very much for showing up and talking
Thank you,
to us about
Fionn.
this.
Of course.
Yay. Check out the RPG Concierge. We'll put links everywhere, so go hunt them out. Oh, hello, Lolo. What are you reading next?
Doggy Paws.
Doggy Paws. Bones, the book.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah,
well, goodbye.
Goodbye.
So are you, dear audience human, going to pick up this book now that you've heard our review? Let us know in the comments. Have a suggestion for another review? Slide on into our DMs.
If you like this adventure in books or updates on our upcoming projects, please follow, like, save, subscribe, rate, review us on Instagram at l.skyford, on Twitch at lskyford, and on Twitter at skyfordl. Phew. I'm Sky.
And I'm Ford. That's it for this episode. We'll see you next time on Booklandia, where every book is a whole world to explore. And we're out.